Headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
I think a very welcome day yesterday, an announcement from the Equality and Human Rights Commission, the equalities watchdog, who, after long overdue decision after consultation and years of uncertainty, have decided to reinstate the legal right to single-sex places like gyms, like hospital wards and changing rooms in shops, and even refuges, where unless you're a biological woman, not someone who claims they're a woman, you are not allowed into those spaces, and that discrimination is legal. Well, let's talk about this with Maya Forstatter. She's Executive Director of Sex Matters. She herself has come up against the trans lobby in terms of accusations against her simply for speaking up for women's safety and women's rights. Maya, no doubt you are as delighted as I and pretty much every parent, man and woman, is today, that we've got single-sex spaces back.
Yes, it's brilliant, Julia. It's not a change in the law. It's going back to what the law has always said. But the Equality and Human Rights Commission have given clear guidance for service providers and for individuals using a space. If a space says female only, you should be able to be confident that it is female only.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. This isn't very complicated to most of us. And let's point out, this is not an anti-trans thing. This is not against people who are living as a different gender from what they are. This is about not offending people. This is about safety and anxiety levels for women and girls. Talking to my guest, we'll go to this morning, he doesn't want to walk into a toilet where there are 13-year-old girls or a changing room, and 13-year-old girls and grown women don't want to be in these places, changing rooms, toilets or hospital wards with adult men. There was a reason why we brought these. They're called safe spaces, but these gender-divided places, there was a reason why we brought them in. They were for everyone's benefit.
Right, and not just for safety, for dignity and privacy, just for the real basics of people being able to move around in the world, whether they're, young women and girls, Muslim women, Jewish women, all kinds of people want privacy when they're undressing.
I'm none of those things. I definitely want privacy when I'm undressing.
Absolutely.
But the key thing is also most men don't want it. And I don't believe there's actually been such a demand from trans women or trans men either.
Well, I mean, there is a demand by people who want to use opposite sex services in order to validate their feeling that they're really a man or a woman. And there's been an expectation that they could do that. In fact, their doctors told them to do it as a sort of test of whether they could get around in the world. But those doctors didn't have the right to overrule the consent of other people. We are also going around our day-to-day life, and we're not there to validate someone's gender feelings. We're trying to have our own dignity and privacy.
And the other issue here is, again, I don't think this has ever been an issue about people, being concerned about that. That awful thing that we had, when people were anti-gay rights. That sort of this awful thing that gay people were associated with paedophiles. I mean, there was just sort of horrible homophobia. And then we've had this idea that people who are concerned about trans rights trampling on women's rights, that people are accusing trans people of being sex predators. That's not what's happening. What's been happening, though, is sex predators have been using and abusing the legislation and the rights and the expectations of what's come under trans rights to gain access to victims, to the victims, whether it's, men pretending they are trans to get into women's toilets, changing rooms, women's prisons even, women's refuges. So this is about trans people being exploited as well.
Yes, and the bottom line is nobody should have to negotiate about where they go. Everyone should have clarity, and often it's easy. It's not rocket science to have a third space, to have a third option. Everyone should be accommodated in public life, but women and girls and men and boys need to be able to have privacy from the opposite sex. And the Equality and Human Rights Commission is there to protect everybody's rights, and they've accepted this and they're promoting this, which is, which brilliant.
And they're going to get a lot of attacks for it, but you know and I know this is a victory for common sense and for the vast majority of people, men and women, I believe also most trans people as well. Amaya Forstatter, Executive Director of Sex Matters, thank you so much for joining us. 7:46 is the time.
Good talk. Hot talk.
Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.